When did you realize, I'm in a cult? I dated a girl in high school who was a total freak in the bedroom, so when she pressured me into going to church with her, it was hard to say no. First red flag was when they called me Brother Braniel as an introduction. Second red flag was when everyone started yelling gibberish and jumping around. Third red flag was when they brought out the snakes. I actually got some pretty harsh looks because I didn't start talking gibberish and jumping around. It was definitely a case of, you're here, this is what you do, peer pressure. So that's how I visited a snake-handling Holiness, Alabama backwater church. My college friend invited me to a service at her new church. Later told me that the, quote, church met in a barn and they spent their last service literally vomiting up their demons. 50 or so people just wholly vomiting all at once. I went to my 20th reunion 5 years ago, and the woman who organized it I've known since 3rd grade. Very nice, smart, charismatic, the whole package, and she told me about her self-help and life coaching company. I said that sounds cool and maybe I could benefit. So she said she would hook it up later. I live in LA, and when I got back I had an email introducing me to her colleague, whose email domain was esplosangeles.com, which sounded weird. A quick trip to their webpage and a Google search, and I found out she was trying to get me to join NXIVM, which is now all over the news. Google NXIVM, all caps by the way, and steel yourself. I noped right out of there, and I'm glad I did, as a bunch of them are going to jail now. The therapeutic boarding school Elan. The first night I got there, everyone told me how I'd get used to everything. And I did. I fell into their trap. I didn't realize how messed up it was until the school got shut down by the FBI and the owner got charged with child endangerment and inappropriate behavior with a student. I got invited to a business meeting for a life insurance company. My wife was looking for business connections and trying to get referrals to her company, so we went along. It was a multi-level marketing life insurance company. It was such a creepy, culty place. Everyone with fake serial killer smiles, constantly talking about how much money they're making. The worst part was the other guests around us were nodding their heads in agreement, taking in the bullcrap hook, line, and sinker. My wife and I just looked at each other, left, and stopped answering that guy's phone calls. We had actually signed up for some insurance through them when we thought it was a normal company. We immediately cancelled and signed up with a real big-name insurance company. The narrator was honestly making bets with himself on when the first multi-level marketing scheme would appear. And in case you're questioning whether they really count, perhaps not religiously, but look at how they acquire and keep their members, and then Google how modern cults do it. The methods are remarkably similar. And just like cults, they tend to destroy regular people's lives. Actually, there was a great discussion about such organizations shortly after. Here it is. My now ex-boyfriend said he signed up for a professional and personal development course. I realized it was a cult when he came back with no personality and a whole new set of esoteric jargon. And any questions I had about it were rebuffed. What, you think it's a cult or something? I mean, you know Apple is considered a cult too, right? I find it interesting that most newer cults aren't really religious. The old doomsday, God's gonna get you things are a lot rarer. Now it's just a bunch of self-help crap that doesn't even pretend to be about anything other than success. I can't tell if this is worse or better. Which makes lots of money. I think cults today are more about making lots of money off desperate people than they are about gods or the alien spaceship coming. My school's National Honor Society induction involved all of the inductees crowding in a dark room and chanting the National Honor Society pledge while holding candles. I was at a cafe one time and a guy was giving a multi-level marketing pitch to this girl who was buying it hook, line, and sinker. I listened to his pitch for about 1.5 hours. I was working on a paper and he was talking so loudly, and it took that long to figure out what they were selling. It was insurance. He'd already talked about how uplines work, the money structure, promise of making 6 figures a year, and he hadn't even mentioned exactly what they were selling. I work for an insurance company, and I was waiting for a moment for him to get up to go to the bathroom or something, so I could warn her that this was an MLM cult and no reputable insurance company runs this way. But after 3 hours, I got tired of waiting and left. Best of luck with your new lifestyle, lady. I went to a small women's college in Virginia. I only stayed a semester because of the group mentality. They would have constant rituals that were not technically mandatory, but you were weird if you didn't go. One alone wasn't weird, but collectively it was too much. For example, one Founders Day, everyone wore white. We went to the chapel for the ceremony and then walked 2 miles to the graveyard where the founders were buried. We all had to lay roses on the graves and sing the school's song. 4 girls in my class tried to self-delete in the first semester, and my class only had 64 girls. If you discussed transferring, then the dean of the students and the school's counselor would threaten to have you put in a mental hospital for 72 hours. I transferred in secret so no one would find out. I didn't even tell my friends. I'd wake up at 4 a.m. and transfer stuff from my dorm room to be shipped home. In short, went to a women's college, and if you didn't conform, the dean of the students would threaten to put you in a mental institution. I was looking into franchise businesses a while back, and one place offered me the chance to buy in and become a business coach. They had me take aptitude tests, went over my work history, and said that I'd be perfect with my business background. I went to meet them with a group of other potential franchisees at a presentation in a hotel, common for all franchise businesses, and I was like, what the frick? This is a multi-level marketing scheme. The other people there had next to no business experience, and all they were telling us was that we had to find our clients to coach and then read them a script off an iPad app. What's scary is that they're an actual registered franchise business. I'm not going to say that the script they had didn't have useful things that actually could have helped a small business, mainly because I would have to pony up around $100,000 just to see it. Every other franchise I spoke to and turned down, like a food or educational chain, were extremely polite and said, "Best of luck to you." These guys just cut off all contact with me, and I heard later through my franchise broker they were angry. When my Latin club sacrificed a stuffed animal before finals to pray to the gods for good grades. "But sir, the oracle at Delphi clearly predicted that I would score an 87%. You are either mistaken in your grading or intentionally undermining the sacred rights of the gods at Delphi." Had a pretty crappy sales position selling TV and internet in retail stores. It was impulse sales, meaning you're trying to get people to sign up for 2 years of something they just learned about 5 minutes ago. Anyways, there was a ton of rejection, but it was a full commission gig, so you stayed in the field until you closed. Therefore, it required a crap ton of effort and seemingly unending optimism and confidence. Anyways, every morning you'd get fired up with cheers and chants and other activities that involved yelling and team building. This also resulted in there being 10,000 sayings recycled on the daily about sticking through it and taking control of your destiny. Anyway, you buy into the system and the energy, and that's how they get you. One night I was driving home a coworker, and you pay for your own gas, another sweet perk, and he found an article, "Why the company is like a cult." And though he was laughing on the outside, this guy 100% brought it up to be like, this stuff is crazy, right? Needless to say, the article was spot on and he didn't last much longer, and I quit soon after that. After reading that, the narrator is realizing that a door-to-door salesman job he worked just after he finished high school was, if not an actual cult, then kind of cult-adjacent. Right down to the chants we did to get hyped. Luckily, I was so bad at it that I had to leave and go back on unemployment for a bit longer until I found my first actual job in a cafe. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. When I was in middle school, a Jehovah's Witness family showed up and enrolled their kids in public school. One of them, a fairly attractive boy, started flirting with me. I'd always been that weird girl in school, so I obviously fell for him. He told me he wasn't allowed to date per se, but he was allowed to invite people to his church, and if I went with him, we could hang out and it would be just like a date. So I went with him, and that day we were talking about how if you join the church, you cannot speak with apostates or any of your family who aren't witnesses. I knew enough about cults for that to be a big red flag. I was still interested in him though. When he asked me to go again, I politely declined because churchy stuff had never been my speed. Instead, I suggested we sneak out one night and meet. He did, and I used my allowance to get us tickets to some movie. I didn't see him for years after that. His family just vanished. The next time I saw him, it was in a mall. I went up and said hi, only for his grandmother to yank him away, snarling not to speak with, "That filthy hussy." I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but I think he was only allowed to flirt with me because they were trying to convert me and my family. In my community, we were pretty well known. My father was the fire chief, and in a small town like this, that's a big deal. I still wonder what happened to that guy, though. I once went to my friend's Scentsy party. It was so uncomfortable. I hate scented candles and all that crap. I get headaches from a lot of fragrances, and I have a terrible sense of smell, so I'm really not the target market for Scentsy. Every woman at the party would ooh and ah at each scent. I was pretty indifferent to all of them, and I really didn't want to spend $50 on a candle. But there was so much pressure that I just brought a wax warmer and got the heck out. Never again. I realized I was in a cult after I entered the Oculus Quest subreddit. I was having a crisis of faith in college, and my friend invited me to a megachurch her family sometimes visited. She was singing its praises, talking about how supportive, friendly, and progressive it was. She swore this place would speak to me. One of the issues I had with religion was how old-fashioned it was, how things didn't change with the times, so progressive sounded great. We got there for the 11 a.m. service. There were like 5 services throughout the day to accommodate their massive congregation. And my friend took me through the door for new worshippers and visitors. I was already kind of put off by this. I didn't want to go through the visitors' door because I don't like having special attention drawn to me in a new place. I tried to get my friend to let me go through the regular door, since I just wanted to check the place out and no reason to make a big deal out of it. But she insisted this was how things were done and I had to go. At this point, I'm about to balk. Why is there a separate entrance? Why can't I use the normal door? Are they going to baptize me before they let me in? Because I've been there, done that, and it didn't seem to take. I finally let her drag me in there. She was my ride after all. Inside, there were several staff members, all smiling way too large smiles in the welcoming area, waiting on us newbies. We went up to one lady who gave me a super chipper rendition of the welcome speech that was echoing almost verbatim around us to other newcomers. All are welcome. We don't judge. All faiths, creeds, backgrounds are encouraged. She gave me a free t-shirt, super comfy if I'm being honest, and then a coupon for a free smoothie from the cafe in the church right outside the sanctuary. Now, I grew up Southern Baptist, and the concept of having to pay for something in a church, besides what was in the offering plate, was completely foreign and just this side of blasphemous. I asked my friend what was in the smoothies because I felt it was a more modern way to drink the Kool-Aid, and she wasn't amused by that. But still, free is free, so I took it. We went in, and the music was something. They took popular songs from the time but changed the lyrics to fit the religious theme. After, they had a bunch of people come out and start telling us how the church helped fix their awful paths of sin. They were alleged substance addicts who lost everything to their substances, but it turned around at the church. There were people talking about how giving to the church helped them out of their financial struggles. I mean, excuse me? The minister came out and told us if we were having a rough time mentally, physically, financially, or personally, that giving money to the church would make it better. If it didn't work at first, try giving more. You try giving 10% but no results, God just wants you to give more to spread the word. Try giving 20%. The guy made it clear that giving your time to the church was not as valuable as giving money. He talked about giving massive donations that no normal person could ever afford without losing everything. One guy said that doing this cured him of his gambling. I mean, yeah, because you don't have anything left to gamble. Not really a cure, just an alternative displacement of funds. By the time we left, I felt worse about religion than before. I told my friend that the place felt more like a cult or a really smiley mafia. Wouldn't have surprised me if people telling their stories on stage were just trying to work off a debt to the minister. My friend disagreed and just said that I was jaded. It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to pass into heaven. That's a very easy saying to understand. It's absolutely insane the mental and ideological backflips that some of these megachurch owners will go through to explain away that saying, and justify the obscene amounts of money that they exploit from their congregation. I don't know whether they believe what they're saying or not, but they're just so blatantly rich and taking people's money away from them that I don't understand how they or the people they take from can justify it. I joined a mum group when I was having my first child. It was a crunchy mum group. For those who don't know, a crunchy mum is kind of like a hipster mum, and the mum groups can get pretty cult-like. I joined the group because of shared ideas. bed sharing, extended breastfeeding, cloth diapering, and stuff like that. Well, I gave up on cloth diapering and those mums went nuts. They staged an intervention with me and pretty much wouldn't let me leave until I put my kid in a cloth. And that's only some of the things. My parents were part of AmITheA. It's a pyramid scheme, of course, but it's also extremely religious. I'd even classify it as its own denomination of Christianity. They used to have to do meetings, in which they tried to rope friends and family and total strangers they met at work into doing AmITheA too, which began and ended with a prayer even if the people weren't religious or Christian. They'd literally pray for money and wealth. AmITheA worked like a private country within America. It even had its own movies, music, and celebrities. You don't see all of that from the outside. It's not until you're deep into it that you realize how hard they pound this stuff into people. It's a miracle my parents decided to give it up. Going to my first high school football game in South Texas. Real cult vibes. Isagenix and basically the one weekend of seminars that my significant other and I had the chance to go to since it was hosted in Seattle. Yeah, Isagenix comes off as a little cultish. I went to high school orientation with my son. There was a presentation phase where electives and clubs got to talk and tell everyone what they were about. A group of really excited kids got up on stage and started talking about all the great places their club goes and to all of the competitions, without ever saying anything about what they actually do. Before they got done talking, my son watches me pull my phone out and search, "Is DECA a cult?" When typing "Is DECA," the occult part was top recommended additional search. I don't think my son is going to join. I've been involved in a number of cults, both as a leader and a follower. You have more fun as a follower, but you make more money as a leader. I was part of a Second Life roleplay sim years ago that was really dark and toxic even though people swore it wasn't, and people kept going back even though they'd leave even more battered than they already were. Everyone was convinced that it had been a wonderful place and that if they just tried a little bit harder, they could make it great again. No one ever succeeded, of course, and after going back and leaving a few times myself, I finally left for good. But something always bothered me that I could never explain. Why did everyone there feel like the city was theirs? Like they somehow owned a stake in the city, like somehow the city had become a part of their very soul, even though it was just a stupid RP sim. Years later, I was researching abuse psychology and found a list of cult traits. I was able to check off just about every single box. Gosh darn place was run like a cult. Turns out most Second Life roleplay sims are. Screw that stuff. When the people who I thought were my friends turned on me, resorting to threats of violence and the unspeakable act and even death because I disagreed with them. The Penn State scandal with Jerry Sandusky. Screw your little kids, we want another national championship, please. Plus the overinflated egos of most Penn Staters. We get it, you go to Penn State and crap on everyone else with no real reason to do so. I've got some friends that go there that aren't like this, but gosh darn, your IQ isn't that much higher than mine, if it is at all. Penn State isn't MIT on an academic scale, nor is it Alabama on a football scale. That place is a cult. Oh boy, I'll try and keep this brief. So I applied to this sales job. Got asked in for an interview the next day. I go there, and it's cool, but it seems like they're just telling me how great their business is rather than actually interviewing me. Second group interview arranged. I meet a cute girl. Vibes. The team leader interviewing us buys us coffee and generally seems way too bubbly. Suspicion kicks in. I get told we start Monday. Over the weekend, I matched the cute girl on Tinder. This is kind of a side story, but we started dating over the next few weeks. I got into work on Monday. Morning meeting is basically a fricking circle where the boss man's right-hand man preaches about motivation or ambitions or some crap and waves about how dope Elon Musk's life or Bill Gates or something are, and they all did it by being self-employed. There's like a routine that all the others have learned where they chant certain things whenever the front guy says anything in specific. We roleplay training pitches before going out, loud, bumpy music to enforce the good vibes. I already know I'm being played, but I really need the money at the time, so I just roll with it and half-heartedly go into the whole, yep, I'm gonna have this jerky, over-enthusiastic energy if it helps me get sales and stay here until I find something better mentality. Before I even start working, they had literally explained quite honestly how the entire business works with a trickle-down commission system, but it was pretty clear that the way it really works was the following. Someone starts here. then realizes they're earning nothing. Then hears all the stories about how successful people have been, realizes they need to take new recruits below them to scrape off their earnings, takes new recruits, then realizes they have to pander to and over-exaggerate how the person below them is going to become rich too, otherwise they'll just quit, and practically get mind-controlled and mind-control others. Hope the person below them gets more people even further below them, and the whole business is about being a deceptive sociopath and deceiving people until you've suckered them enough to train them to also be deceptive sociopaths. As far as I can tell, the management lied about how many sales people got on average to make it look like others were earning more. The business literally had a whole other business above it that was taking a cut of their earnings, and several businesses under it when team leaders' teams got too big. If you're interested in it, you can read about the kind of business at the Devil Corp WordPress. The manager that I worked for is literally pictured on that site with devil horns. I found that site about 2 weeks after I started, and it basically confirmed everything I already knew. It's practically a business and cult that makes its money by what is basically psychology engineering. I told the girl I was dating, who started at the same time as me, everything I knew, and she thought I was a conspiracy nutjob, called me delusional and several other harsh things, and sold me out to the boss. I got called into the office and the manager showed me the texts I sent her. Last I heard, from one good lad who somewhat believed what I had to say, everyone had been talking crap about me behind my back because that's exactly what they want. They want any defectors to become a laughingstock. It's been about a year, but in the UK, these businesses are spreading like wildfire because they're literally designed to just expand and reincorporate into new child companies in different locations. I see people cold approaching other people on the street or at the edge of stores with badges. I normally try to talk to them, confirm what company they're with and who they're affiliated with, and they normally lead back to the same few businesses. I tell them to check out the link I just mentioned and hope that they aren't too brainwashed and that they look into what they're doing. It needs media exposure because really I see more of these people and more of these job postings on boards every month. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.